Think going paleo or keto means saying goodbye to bread forever? Think again. I'm changing your mind today with this recipe. Hi, I'm Dr. Lexi Watson, a functional medicine practitioner, and welcome to my channel and my kitchen. Today I'm going to be doing things a little bit differently, and I'm inviting you into my world of how I try to live a brain healthy lifestyle, trying to live what I preach and teach to my clients. So today I'm going to walk you through one of my favorite go-to grain-free, keto-friendly bread recipes. One of the things I hear from my clients most often is that they miss bread, and I don't blame them. Bread's delicious. However, as I've explained in a previous video, actually this video right here, gluten is not great for our brains, at least the gluten in this country. So we need to find alternatives to make bread healthy again for our bodies. And that's what we're gonna do today. So not only is it going to look, smell, and taste like bread, it's absolutely delicious. And it's from one of my favorite recipe books, Keto Breads. So I will link this in the description below so you can grab a copy for yourself. But this bread is full of wonderful ingredients, whole foods, functional ingredients that your body uses to fuel your mitochondria, your brain, and the rest of your body. This particular recipe that I'm going through today is just a simple sandwich bread. It tastes amazing, but you can use it for breakfast sandwiches, for lunch or breakfast. You can use it as a snack, as toast, whatever. It's a really versatile bread recipe. So that's why I wanted to share it with you today. So let's dive in. Okay, so today we are going to be making the real deal keto bread. So I've got all of the ingredients lined up here. So let me go through those real quick. I will be linking as many of these in the description as possible for you so you don't have to go trying searching for them. So I'm gonna start with our tools. I have a 7.5 by 3.5 inch loaf pan here that is lined with parchment paper. Ideally, the parchment paper would be unbleached, but that's what I have today. We have measuring spoons, measuring cups, and our glass mixing bowls. They can be glass or stainless steel, either one, but those are your best non-toxic choices. Then we have active dry yeast, some water, and maple syrup to make that bloom. This recipe does call for eggs and dairy, but what I love about this book is it does go through substitutions for each of those, and there are great substitutes out there that aren't just made of crap. So for this recipe, we'll have a few eggs, we'll have some butter, some organic yogurt, and some apple cider vinegar as our wet ingredients. And then for our dry ingredients, we have almond flour, that's what's in this guy, psyllium fiber, flaxseed meal, baking powder, sea salt, cream of tartar, and grass-fed gelatin. So now that we have gone over what the ingredients are, let's get started baking. Okay, so first we're going to heat up our water. We want it to be somewhere between 105 and 110 degrees Fahrenheit so that we don't kill the yeast, but we can actually allow it to bloom. So here we go. Okay, so now I have my water heated up. We need to add the water, the yeast, and the maple syrup to this large bowl, and we're going to start letting this bloom. We're going to add it all. Why not? So So we're adding about 2 teaspoons of yeast and 2 teaspoons of maple syrup here. And then we're gonna add our hot water to that. Then we are going to cover with a kitchen towel. We're gonna let that set aside for about 7 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to mix our dry ingredients. Okay, so 1.5 cups of almond flour, 2/3 cup of flaxseed meal. I don't have a 2/3 cup, so I'm doing 2 1/3 cups. 2 tablespoons of psyllium husk fiber, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1 teaspoon of sea salt, 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar, and 2 teaspoons of gelatin. You can use a spoon or a fork to mix up the dry ingredients. Sometimes I find that it's easier to break up large clumps of like almond flour or something like that with a fork. So I'm just going to make sure that this is mixed really well. And I'm going to set that aside. Now I'm going to melt the butter. We're going to have about 1/4 cup, which is 1/2 stick. And we're going to melt that. Okay, so I have my butter melted. I just cooked this for about 30 seconds in the microwave. You can also cook it on the stovetop, but I am being a little lazy today. So anyway, about 30 seconds, and there was still a little bit that was unmelted in there, so I just swirled the ball around until it melted because the rest of it's hot. Okay, so we are going to use about 1/4 cup of yogurt. All right, so before we finish mixing that, let me check on my yeast. So you can see we've got a little bit of foam on top. That's what we want. Is that the most foam I've ever seen? No. This bread batch may or may not rise as much as we want, but you also have to make sure that your dry yeast is within date. I think mine is, but it's coming close to the expiration date for sure, so just be aware of that. So I am going to finish up the wet ingredients here. We're gonna have a tablespoon of the raw apple cider vinegar, and then 3 eggs. So I have some eggs straight from a friend's farm here, so I am gonna wash these off before I use them. Okay, so these we're going to whisk together, so I'm actually going to switch over to a fork. You can use an actual whisk if you want, but sometimes I don't really like washing mine, so we're using a fork today. Okay, that looks good. And this is why I used the medium-sized bowl for the wet ingredients instead of for the dry ingredients, because I had to have room to whisk that. Okay, something else I forgot to tell you that you could definitely benefit from in this recipe. You can beat these ingredients together using just yourself and a whisk, but it's so much easier if you can get a hand mixer. So I will also link this, don't worry. Now we are going to pour the wet ingredients into the yeast mixture, and then we're going to beat them. Okay. And then we're going to add in our dry ingredients, and we're going to beat again to combine. Okay, now we are going to scrape this into our loaf pan, right? And this is the tricky part, because if you've ever worked with parchment paper before, it doesn't really like to cooperate with you. So we'll see what we can do. All right, but we're going to scrape down the sides and scrape this into the loaf pan. Now, this is a little messy, but we don't want to push down too much. You can kind of smooth it over a little bit, but it does affect how much it will rise. So just keep that in mind. We're aiming for rising between anywhere from 1 to 2 inches. So how we do that is we are going to cover this guy with a kitchen towel, and I'm going to place him in my pantry. It's a draft-free area for about 50 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 50 minutes, and the last part of that, I preheated my oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to reveal the rise. I would say this rose definitely didn't rise as much as I wanted it to. I would say it rose about 1/2 inch. So it smells amazing though. So that being said, I mean, I'm cooking this in real time. So what I would go back and do differently is probably scrap my yeast mix bloom thing that I made. It didn't foam quite as much as I wanted it to. So I probably would have scrapped that and just started a new batch. But I'm really bad about not wanting to waste anything. So as you can see, that has panned out a little differently for me today, but this bread is still gonna taste as delicious as always. It'll just be a little more dense than normal. So I'm gonna pop this guy in the oven. It bakes for about 40 to 45 minutes. And I like to cover the top for the last 15 minutes with aluminum foil, not super tight, and that way it doesn't get too brown on top while still cooking all the way through. So I'm actually gonna pop it in for about 30 minutes and then put the aluminum foil on. Okay, we are ready to pull this thing out of the oven. I'm so excited. This house smells incredible, as you can probably imagine. I wish you could smell it. All right, so I'm gonna take off the aluminum foil and look at this amazing bread. Here, I'm gonna turn it around for you. Wow, that looks incredible. It smells delicious. Always be sure to remember to turn off your oven. Very important step there. Okay, so we've let this cool for about 30 minutes, so I'm going to take it out of the pan now and let it cool the rest of the way just straight on the wire rack. Sometimes it needs a little bit of jiggling, but this is why we put the parchment paper in, because for the most part, it just slides right out. And here we are. I'm gonna let this cool all the way before we slice it. It smells amazing. Okay, so now this bread is completely cooled, so I'm able to cut it, do a big reveal. No, you cannot have any. Thank you, ma'am. I know, it smells good, doesn't it? See, she likes it. Anyway, she has good taste. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and slice it open for you. I'm gonna taste it, make sure it tastes good, because that would just be sad if I didn't. So this is what it looks like. I'll get a close-up here in a second. But this is how spongy it is on the inside. Looks great. So, you know, it's not as big of a loaf as you would buy in a store, but this will love your body back way better, love your brain back way better than anything that you could buy in the store. Plus, you made it with love. So here we go. I'm gonna try it. That was so good. Honestly, it tastes like whole grain bread. It's a little on the sweet side, not like super sweet like a honey bread. Because of the almond flour, it does have a little bit of a sweeter taste. So anyway, So if you want to try this out, I'm going to link the recipe book in the description below, so be sure to check that out, order you one. They have tons of fabulous recipes. Again, remember they have all the substitutions that you would need in this book. And I believe that they have a keto desserts recipe book as well. So be sure to check that out. Now, when you try this recipe, let me know how it goes. Let me know if you make any tweaks or anything like that. I would love to hear about it. You gotta take another bite, it's so good. This bread would be really good to make sandwiches with. It's very sturdy. Or you could sop up some fried egg yolk with it. You can just put some butter on it, enjoy it. Or enjoy it like I am now, just plain. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification so you don't miss any upcoming videos. And with that, we will see you next time, right, Nokomis?